everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Well, we just finished fixing up 148.8N, so what else should we do now? Let's fix up another 48.8N. We've already made a few videos about this one. I think there's 2 or 3 videos in the series so far. It's called the 1948 48N Parts Tractor, which turned out, I guess, not being a parts tractor. I bought this off a buddy of mine that does scrap metal, and he comes across these little Ford tractors once in a while. So he calls me up, and sometimes we'll strike a deal on them and he'll bring them down. So you can go back and watch the previous few videos. I'll see if I can. I'll put a link to the album of videos in the description box below. So what we're going to do is we determined that it runs, even though it does smoke a little bit, it pumps a little oil. We'll deal with that. And it drives, the hydraulics work, everything seems fine on it, the steering is nice. So we're going to go ahead and fix it up. So what we're going to start doing now today is taking it apart. The hood's already been off, it's just kind of sitting on there. And we'll pull that off, get the dog legs off it, get the fenders off. I'll just get the sheet metal stored away somewhere because that's usually the last thing I deal with. And we'll start working on, you know, there's my fingers, the rest of it. We're just slowly working our way along here, picking away at it, taking off little bits and pieces and kind of keeping our work area tidy as we go. The coolant is drained, so now we can get the radiator off. I already had the fan off when I was screwing around trying to get it running. It's just easier dealing with these front distributor engines when there's no fan in the way. So it's over there, it'll get painted and go back on. So we're just picking away. I've got a parts list on the go. I've already ordered some parts. And then I'm pretty sure I know everything that I need. And if I happen across something beyond that, I'll add it to my next list and we'll make sure we get it. So far it's been coming apart pretty well. I've only had to heat up a couple of, you know, small little fasteners just because I didn't want to break them. This tire is pretty decent, and I have the actual like exact match for it. So we'll be able to replace that one because you can see it's pretty badly cracked. So we'll get a good tire on that side. It's got good tires on the front, on decent rims. So this has the potential to be a pretty nice machine once it's back together. I've started draining all the fluids out of it. When I pulled the drain plug, which also has the strainer incorporated into it, well, you can see the strainer's seen better days, so we'll replace that. Now we're draining the hydraulic oil, so the hydraulic pump, the transmission, the rear end, it's all a common sump, and there's about 5 gallons of gear oil in there. So you've got one big plug there, a big plug in the bottom of the hydro pump, and a smaller pipe plug at the back, which is the one I always pull out first. It's a 1/2-inch pipe plug because these two here are a big plug, like a plug that big. And when you pull that out, what a gusher you unleash. So I pull that one out first. It gets a bunch of the oil out, and then I kind of work my way forward. So we'll take the one out of the hydraulic pump next. It's you need a 1 1/16 socket to get that one out. So now as we go to take the wheels off, here's a problem. This thing has got a loose hub. So basically somewhere along the line, somebody has done a brake job on it and not gotten this nut tight enough when they put it back together. And it just starts, the hub is on a tapered spline, and eventually it kind of eats itself and you end up with a loose hub. I will show you how to fix that. Right now we're at the point where everything that comes apart easily is apart. So now we're going to start getting into some of the nastier things on these tractors, like taking apart the front end, the hubs and the brakes, and the hydraulic lift stuff at the back. A lot of it came apart easily, but there's some of it back there that's stuck, you know, from sitting outside since 1948. That'll do it. So first thing we're going to do is get the axle knees off. I'm not going full blown crazy on this one like we did on the last 48. This is more of a worker bee kind of job. We're just doing a sort of a lipstick on a pig. Somebody has gone through this tractor before I did, and they fixed up a lot of stuff. Like I could see here, that's a replacement pin. So, and the front end in this one was really good and tight. So it's mostly just a cosmetic job on this one. So I'm not going to go taking apart all these hubs and kingpins and all that stuff. We're just going to clean it up as best we can, give it a coat of paint, and put it back together. So first thing we got to do is see if these big bolts will come out. Well, we got the axle knees off. What helps with that is a really good impact gun, and I highly recommend the Nitro Cat. This thing is, it's an animal. I got almost the whole job done with my old Blue Point, which as you can see is just an Ingersoll 231, right? Rebranded. And it was almost going to finish the job, but I had one bolt left that was stuck in here, and the Blue Point gun just wouldn't quite get it turning, but the Nitro Cat got it to spin and come out. Now, next thing we're going to be up against is the center axle pin. So you could see that I got the bolt out, and just twisting the axle up that way, it moved the pin. So the pin, first good news, is not stuck in the bolster. It's just kind of tight in the bushing. So we should be able to just kind of get the bolster off and then put it on a couple of pieces of wood and drive the pin out. Then the next fun will be getting these pins for the radius rods, but we'll probably do that in the old 20-ton press. So the axle is down. Look at the junk that was in there. That's, since 1948 with the seal leaking. These things all leak. It's just got a rope seal in the front of it. So that, it's still packed down in there. Once we get the axle beam out, we'll be able to get that clean up. There's some, look at that. Nice original vermilion red from 1948. So you can see we've got this thing blocked up, and I found, I don't know, some kind of an old mandrel that I had for something else, but it fits in there. And you just gradually start working your way up through your hammer collection until you find one that works. This is the first one I tried. It's doing nothing, so we're going to move up. What have we got here? We'll try our little Thor mini sledge here. And, important, safety glasses, hearing protection, and some gloves. The gloves are over there. Well, that was quite a procedure, but in the end we got it out. You can see here somebody put a new bushing and a new pin, but just from sitting around outside for years and years and years, it all seized. The pin was actually seized in the bushing. You can tell it pulled the bushing almost completely out of the axle as the pin was coming out. Wow, that is really in there. So now, next, this becomes a little more manageable, and we'll see if we can get these pins out of here. I was able to knock this pin out just using a long bit in my air chisel, and the one on the other side, it just took a little bit of heat with the torch, and it pushed out with the air chisel too. So we never had to try and wrangle this thing into the press. That probably would have been, well, exciting. Next step, we're going to get the engine pulled off and on a stand so we can open it up and see what's going on. If you remember, we got it running. It ran fine, but it had low compression in one cylinder. Number 3 or number 4. I'll have to look that up. And I'm not too sure about the oil pressure, but when I saw the oil that came out of it, it was pretty yucky. That might have had something to do with it. But we're going to have, we'll have a look at the crankshaft, and we're going to pull all the pistons out because this thing had sat and the engine was a little bit sticky. And we'll see if it's got some sticky rings we can free up, or we'll just clean up the bores and re-ring it. Time will tell. Well, it turns out it's got a relatively new clutch in it. It just needs cleaning up because it's been sitting for so long. But the flywheel looks good. The ring gear looks good. The only thing in here I can really see as a problem is the pilot bearing. The back seal has popped out of it. But it's just a common bearing. I've always got a few of them kicking around. So we'll change that, and we can carry on with our strip down. Here's the engine safely parked on our engine stand so we can get to work on it. I've gone now and done all my torch work. There's a lot of stuff that needed to get heated up so it would come apart. Stuff like these pins and these yokes here. All of these bolts, they're cinch bolts for all these clevises and the brake pedal and the clutch pedal on the other side. They had to be heated up. They're fine threaded. They get stuck in there really good. And I mean, it is from the 1940s. It's not exactly a super titanium bolt. It's pretty easy to twist the heads off them if you get over exuberant. These large nuts that hold the lift arms on, they usually get stuck on there pretty good. So I warm them up to get them off. Once you've got the torch lit, you just get the sockets you need and you go around and you do it all in one shot, right? This too. The yoke for the plunger, for the draft control plunger, that's a very, very, very fine thread, and that gets stuck on there too pretty well. You need to heat that up with the torch and be very gentle with it. Also, the quadrant handle for your 3-point hitch. You can see the base of it is aluminum, and it's pushed over that steel shaft with a keyway on it, and it gets stuck in there like nobody's business. So that I heat up with a propane torch because it's aluminum, and you just keep working it, and all of a sudden you'll find it's loose. And once you get it off, don't lose that. That's hot. Don't lose that keyway. So one problem I did find, you can see here, this the pin is loose in the trumpet here. So we'll have to see what we got to do about that. If it's wallowed that hole all out, we may have to replace this trumpet. I'm not sure. I think I've got a spare pin kicking around somewhere. Unfortunately, to repair that, we have to actually take the trumpet off the tractor. So we'll get to that when we do the video about brakes and axle seals. Now we can remove the lift cover and the hydraulic pump. So to get your lift cover off, you just go all around the perimeter of it and take out all the bolts. These 4 studs here, don't touch them. Those are what actually hold the lift cylinder to the inside of the cover. We'll get to that later. These can sometimes be stuck on there pretty well. It's got a pretty thick gasket and it bites right in. Let's see. Yep, see? It's on there like nothing. So we'll just go around and kind of work around it with a hammer. You just give it a few wraps here and there, and that'll loosen up the gasket. But I guess first we could try a bigger bar. There we go. You can see there's more water than hydraulic oil in this thing. Oh, brother. Up here, you can see that's where it's leaking a bit there. That's where the hydraulic oil comes up from the pump. That there is your test port. That's a pretty popular place to tie in for using a loader or other little hydraulic powered implements. And then you would chain this down, and then you use your quadrant to run the implement. When you lift this thing off, just make sure you lift it straight up because you've got this long control rod that goes down there. And it looks like somebody has been in here before us. These control rods will usually get bent over time. And you can see the spot here where somebody's warmed it up with a torch to straighten it. It looks like it's got a new cylinder in it. So this hydraulic cover is pretty good. I do remember when I had the machine running, the lift was working just fine. So I think we're in good shape here. Looking down in here, you can see a few things. This is the little drive shaft that connects the transmission to the diff. You can see it's made of 3 pieces. 2 splines welded to a common tube. This is a common point of failure on these old things. It'll break here at the weld and you'll lose the drive. Below it, you can just see the PTO shaft going through. It runs the hydraulic pump. That's why on these Fords, you have to have the PTO turned on to run the hydraulics. So what we'll do, we will leave the PTO shaft in while we take out all the bolts around the hydraulic pump. That'll keep it from falling out. And then once we've got that done, we'll slide our transmission jack under there, pull the PTO shaft, and lower the pump down. There we are. So once all the bolts were down, I pulled the PTO shaft out and gave it a smack with a piece of brass to break the gasket. Now I'll just slowly lower it down, and it kind of comes down, and there's a little bit of a knack to getting these things down. It's not too complicated, but they don't just come straight down. And there we are. The sludge in there is not even as bad as I've seen on many of these things, but we'll get her cleaned up and make sure it's working properly. Now we're going to knock the rocker off. You don't really have to take this off, but I usually pop it off just because it makes it easier to paint. So to get this off, I've got this clevis pin that I found that fits in there perfectly. And then we go through here with a mallet and just drive the sleeve. You can see here it's not a pin, it's a hollow sleeve that holds it in. Kind of like almost like a giant split pin, but it's not split. So let me go get a big mallet and we'll get that knocked out of there, and then I'll be back. Well, what do you know? It does have a split in it. Anyway, it's out so we can clean these things up, and we'll smack it back together when we're done. There we are, all done and ready for the next step. The last thing I did was I got all these old gaskets cleaned off. Now, please, if you're doing this yourself at home, these gaskets, they're very old. They're from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. They're probably full of asbestos and who knows what. So be very, very careful dealing with these gaskets. Keep them wet if you can with a spritzer. And if you're going to be grinding them or sanding them, for crying out loud, put on a mask. Anyway, we're good with that. In the next video, we're going to tackle the brakes and axles and axle seals and all that sort of stuff. Well, I guess that's it for now. Like I said, in the next one, we'll get working on the back brakes. Until then, if you haven't already, please, down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications so you find out when I post a new video. And until the next time we meet, thanks for tuning in. And this is Kevin checking out from the Claremont Classic Garage. So long for now.